Welcome back. Tonight, a new warning from the United Nations to reduce carbon emissions in the next decade or ensure irreversible environmental damage. The Climate Change Emissions Gap Report shows a vast difference between estimates of future carbon emissions and where they need to be in order to minimize climate devastation. Quote, these summary findings are bleak. Countries collectively failed to stop the growth in global greenhouse gas emissions, meaning that deeper and faster cuts are now required. Right now, emissions are rising. The report calls on countries to reduce emissions by more than 7% by 2030. Even if world leaders follow the Paris Climate Agreement, the same one that the United States is exiting next year, temperatures will still rise to a dangerous degree by the end of the century. Joining me now to break down the report is Dr. Ben Strauss, CEO and Chief Scientist of Climate Central. Ben, really good to see you. How dire is this warning?
Oh, I think it's quite dire. It's a very important warning that we all need to take quite seriously.
Why are we not more alarmist about it? Why scientists haven't been alarmist about it until relatively recently? The idea, I guess, was, from what I've read, that you don't want to freak people out. Is it too late? Should we have been alarmist much sooner?
Well, actually, there's been research on this, and scientists have tended to make mistakes to err on the side of caution and less drama. So, unfortunately, we haven't gotten quite the strength of signal that we've really needed. And when you understand the consequences, I think our descendants will wonder why we didn't climb to the top of the nearest hill and shout. It's, you know, the good side of it is it's never too late to start doing better, but we're in a really bad place.
So what can we do? What needs to happen now in order to push off the effects of climate change, in order to change what looks like the future will be? What it looks like the future will be?
I think the other piece of good news on climate is I think of it as the easiest hard problem. There are a lot of big problems in the world, poverty, disease, war. Climate change amongst those is the most easily solvable. We have the technology that we need. We know what to do. The problem is we have a time limit because basically, as we pollute the atmosphere, the effects of that pollution today is going to last for hundreds and hundreds of years.
Well, let's put up some of the pictures that this report has, or that your organization has provided us with. If we're working with 2 degrees warming, Celsius warming, in hundreds of years, Wall Street will still, by the bull, will still look like this. If it's more than 2 degrees of warming in hundreds of years, it's going to look like it is on the left, underwater. Look at Miami Beach sea levels, same thing. 2 degrees warming, it's not great, but it's not as bad as 4 degrees of warming. And then look at Washington. You don't often see Washington included in this. This is the Pentagon. And that's, you'll see it in just a second. Pentagon, potentially, parts of it underwater with 4 degrees Celsius of warming, and not as bad with 2 degrees Celsius of warming. This is going to happen hundreds of years from now, but the effects will lock in this century, right?
That's right. All those images show the choices that we have to make right now in terms of the legacy that we leave to our descendants.
What are the choices we need to make right now?
So the choices we need to make are to transition to a clean energy economy and really to get our carbon emissions to zero within a few decades. And then see if we can engineer our ways to removing carbon from the atmosphere after that. But it's more than our energy system. It's also transportation, things like transitioning to electric vehicles, which can be supplied by clean energy.
We have that technology.
We have that technology. There are ways we can change how we farm that can be very beneficial to farmers as well as the climate.
So why is it not happening?
Well, change happens slowly often. We have people are set in their ways. We have infrastructure that's aligned with the way we do things now. We have financial interests that are aligned with the way we do things now.
But aren't there financial interests in changing, in pursuing new technology, realizing that oil is not going to be something we can use forever for cars, but realizing later on that, yeah, electricity for cars is going to be much more sustainable, and I'll have profit 100 years from now and not a profit only 20 years from now?
Oh, absolutely. There's financial interest in making this change as well. It's just different companies and different people have interests in the future versus the present scenario.
Can the states do enough alone? Can the corporations do enough alone? Or does this have to be led by the federal government?
Well, I think this problem is too big for any one entity to do on its own. So individuals, states, cities, corporations, it's important that everyone is pulling an oar, but it's going to need serious effort at the federal level from our government and governments around the world to really turn the boat as quickly as we need to turn it if we're going to avoid very serious ramifications.
Ben Strauss. Ben, thanks so much for joining us, and happy Thanksgiving to you.
Happy Thanksgiving.